Hey guys, Stephen here from Adolescence with another video, and these are my top 10 designer fragrances for the summer of 2013. This is the very first top 10 list or top anything list that I've ever done on my channel, so I hope you guys like it. I hope it's well received. Again, thank you so much for tuning into my channel and watching my videos. Now, before I dive into the list, I just want to throw a couple of disclaimers out there. First off, I just very quickly want to say that this is a top 10 list that I compiled myself. These aren't fragrances that I saw in a magazine or anything. This isn't a top 10 list that I found in GQ or anything. This is a list that I've been compiling now for a while, and especially with yesterday being the first day of summer and everything, I thought to myself, if I'm gonna put this video out, I have to do it very soon. So thank you for watching. And again, the fragrances that are on this list are not necessarily on this list because they're favorites of mine or anything, but some of them are on this list because they're recent acquisitions, so I really want to try to wear them, especially for those that are summer fragrances, hence the reason why they're in this list. It's kind of like getting a new toy, you have fun with it, you want to play with it until you get bored. I think in many ways it's the same thing with fragrances. So some fragrances are going to appear on this list, but it's not necessarily because they're favorites of mine. It's because I want to use them and because they're appropriate for the summer months more than anything. And then last, I just want to say, if a fragrance that you really do like and that you're going to be wearing a lot in the summer did not make this list, I do want to apologize for that. Again, the fragrances going on this list are just the ones that are available and accessible to me. If you like a fragrance and it didn't make this list, it's probably because I don't have it in my collection, or because I personally and honestly don't think I'm going to be reaching for it that much in the coming months. But all 10 of these fragrances, I can safely say I really do see myself wearing them a lot in the coming months in the summer. And without further ado, let's just jump right into it. Thanks again for watching. Number 10 on my list is a fragrance from the house of Azzaro. This is a recent acquisition of mine. I think it's very similar to the original. It is a summer flanker in a limited edition. The original is a bit more powdery in my opinion. This one adds a different opening. It's not a conventional summer flanker with this overdrive of citrus in the opening. This one does things a little bit different. So for that reason, I think in my opinion it does warrant a purchase, and I like how it's different and it doesn't fall along the same lines of other summer flankers. So again, from the house of Azzaro, this one is called Chrome Summer 2013 edition. So again, this is a fragrance that opens up very citrusy. There's a little bit of lemon, some other citrus going on in here. I get more lemon than anything. And then it dries down to this mid that contains a lot of black tea. So it's black, unsweetened, very dry and herbal, unlike the spicier, sweeter counterparts. So this, to me, it kind of falls under the same lines of Gucci Par Homme 2 from the house of Gucci. So although they do not smell entirely the same, I think if you like Gucci Par Homme 2, this one is certainly worth sampling. They fall under the same genre. So again, number 10 on my list. I'm going to be wearing this a lot because it's appropriate for the summer, and because in many ways with summer flankers, and that goes for the number 9 fragrance on my list too, they're a way for me to kind of commemorate the summer, so when you smell them again in subsequent summers, it will remind you of the summer of 2013 and all the good times that you had. So that's one of the pleasures that I take with fragrances. So number 9 on my list, like I said, is another summer flanker that I've reviewed on my channel. This is also another one that smells quite similar to the original. I know this is a dead giveaway, but the original, for me, it contains a sour opening because it has a yuzu fruit note. I also think it's contained in this summer flanker, however, it was toned down just a little bit and they decided to add some other citrus in the opening, but again, not conventional. There's kiwi, pineapple, and grapefruit in this opening. However, I do not get a lot of pineapple as other people do. I think it's more about the kiwi and the grapefruit than anything. And this one is from the house of Issey-Miyake, and it's called L'Odyssée pour Homme L'été, or the Summer of 2013 edition. This fragrance to me opens up very citrusy, but in a non-generic, non-conventional type of a way. It has kiwi, it has grapefruit, just a touch of pineapple, and then it dries down to this somewhat sour but more floral heart with androgynous floral notes. I think the lotus flower still plays a very important role in this fragrance. So if you like the original, you want to change things up for the summer of 2013, I think this is a great fragrance for you guys to try out. So L'Odyssée pour Homme L'été 2013 from the house of Issey-Miyake, a great fragrance in my opinion for the summer of 2013. Now, number 8 on my list is one of those fragrances that I wear whenever I want to satisfy a sweet tooth. It's also a flanker. I don't think it's a summer flanker, but the original composition for this fragrance contains a lot of black licorice, a lot of I don't think it's aniseed, I think it's star anise, but it also has like this vanilla tonka bean base, so it's a fragrance that's sweet through and through. Now, fragrances like those I don't think do very well or exceptionally well in the summer. I think they're geared a little bit more toward the colder weather. Now, what this fragrance does, it contains that DNA, but it softens it up. It's a little bit more powdery, more cleaner, more fresher. I don't know if there's iris in this. There may very well be iris. I don't think it's formally listed as a note, but it has some of that like powdery floral properties that many other fragrances in this list will contain. But this one is from the house of Lolita Lempicka, and it's called L'eau au masculin, which I think translates to the masculine water. It's a French name. And this fragrance is very much like the original. It contains, I think, a little bit of licorice, a little bit of star anise. It still has those sweet properties, but this one is a little bit more appropriate for the summer because it's powdery, it's floral, it's light, and it has somewhat of like a fresh and clean vibe to it. It's very inoffensive. I have been reaching for this a lot lately, and I anticipate reaching for this a lot more in the coming months. So number 8 on my list, L'eau au masculin from the house of Lolita Lempicka. Okay, number 7 on my list is a fragrance that I put away for 9 months at a time. I do not reach for this unless we're in the summer, and being that summer is finally here, I'm going to be reaching for this fragrance a lot. Very much like the original, this one contains a lot of ginger. There's no other better way to describe it. If you like the smell of ginger, you're going to fall head over heels in love with this fragrance. For me, quite personally, this fragrance lacks balance. If you've smelled other fragrances that contain ginger, and I have a few more in this list, this one is the most unbalanced because there's so much ginger in this fragrance that if you even dislike ginger a tiny bit, you're going to hate this fragrance. This is from the house of Burberry. It's called Burberry Sport Ice. So this ice edition, to me, it contains a lot of ginger. It smells like freshly grated ginger. There's really no other way to put it. The longevity and the performance of this fragrance is actually very bad. I would say the most that I've gotten on my skin for this one is 3 hours, but I do think that the hotter weather really does help this fragrance a little bit in terms of performance. So again, if you're into very spicy, gingery fragrances, definitely check this one out. I like wearing this because for me, quite personally, it's a spirit lifter, a mood enhancer, and a pick-me-up more than anything. It does have like that spicy, fresh, invigorating feel that I also get out of grapefruit fragrances. So this one, if you're a fan of ginger, check it out from the house of Burberry. It's called Sport Ice. And number 6 on my list is yet another recent acquisition of mine, but I really do like this next fragrance. This is a fragrance that opens up with a little bit of lavender, a little bit of mint, not too much in there, and I know wood isn't listed as a note, but I think I do get somewhat of like even like an ebony wood or a cedar wood base. It's a bit dry, peppery, but it has this aquatic vibe that lasts throughout the entire duration of the entire longevity of the fragrance. This is a fragrance from the house of Salvatore Ferragamo, and it's called Acqua Essenziale. I think this is a great fragrance. Again, this to me reminds me a little bit of Bleu de Chanel. Bleu de Chanel for me, I think, is more about the grapefruit. It's more about the incense note in the opening, and it has much more of a sweeter dry down. This one is more aquatic in my opinion. It's great. It opens up with a little bit of lavender, some mint, but the mint to me goes away, but what doesn't go away are the aquatic properties of this fragrance. There's almost like a salty note in here, and the aquatic notes in this fragrance last for the entire longevity. So number 6 on my list from the house of Salvatore Ferragamo, this one is called Acqua Essenziale, which is Italian of course, and it translates to the essential water. Okay, now we're left with the top 5 fragrances in my opinion, in my list. In my opinion, these are staples in my collection. There's no way that I can go without having these 5 fragrances in my collection. I will be reaching for these a lot. I have been reaching for these a lot. So without further ado, let's set it off with number 5 on my list. This is a fragrance that to me reminds me of apples. I know apple is not listed as a note in this fragrance. Actually, this opens up a little spicy. I know it contains cardamom, like another flanker of this fragrance does, and it also contains a little bit of basil, if I'm not mistaken, and some other assorted spices. But it opens up a little bit citrusy. This, in my opinion, is one of the best balanced ginger fragrances that I've ever come across, but something about it is also very fruity as well. It dries down with a little bit of sweetness from the house of Yves Saint Laurent. This one is called L'Homme. Again, great fragrance, spicy, opens up with a little bit of citrus. It has this kind of like a tonka bean base, if I'm not mistaken. It has a little bit of sweetness, but nothing overpowering. It's not an aquatic in my opinion, but I think it's very fresh. And it's spicy, but not overbearingly spicy, which I think makes it very appropriate for the summer months. So number 5 on my list and a staple in my collection is L'Homme by Yves Saint Laurent. The only bad thing about this fragrance is that I used to wear this a lot to my old job, so now every time I smell it, it reminds me of my old job, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but nevertheless, number 5 on my list, L'Homme from the house of Yves Saint Laurent. Number 4 on my list is a fragrance that I wore to death last summer. I brought this with me to Florida, and I used to wear this along with another niche fragrance that I brought with me, so now every time I smell it, it reminds me of being in Florida. This is a fragrance from the house of Versace, and it's called Man Eau Fraîche. This fragrance right here also has somewhat of an aquatic vibe. It has some spicy nuances. I know there's a tarragon note in here, and it opens up very citrusy. It has some lemon, some bergamot if I'm not mistaken, and it also contains a star fruit note. Now, I don't get too much of that. I know another name for it is carambola. I do eat a lot of that in the summer, especially when I was in Florida, so I actually got a chance to smell it as I was eating the fruit. And I don't get too much of that in this fragrance, but once it dries down, I think it becomes a bit more apparent, even though it's a volatile note, but great fragrance for the summer, and one of the most complimented fragrances in my collection. So from the house of Versace, this one is called Man Eau Fraîche. Definitely a fragrance worth checking out, number 4 on my list. Number 3 on my list is yet another fragrance from the house of Versace. This one used to be the face of Versace, or as far as the fragrance presentation goes, until it was replaced most recently by Eros. This is another fragrance with somewhat of an aquatic vibe. I think this one is more about the florals. In my opinion, this smells a lot like Allure Homme Sport from the house of Chanel. I like this one a little bit better, plus I don't have a bottle of Allure Homme Sport in my collection, so this is a fragrance that I really could not imagine making a top 10 list without. Again, from the house of Versace, this one is called Pour Homme, Versace Pour Homme. Great fragrance. It has a little bit of geranium in here, I think. It has an aquatic vibe that I think lasts for the entire longevity of the fragrance. It's actually really nice. It opens up with a little bit of citrus. Again, I think there's lemon and also a little bit of bergamot, and it dries to this kind of like a cedarwood base. I think very similar to Versace Man Eau Fraîche. This is a bit spicier in my opinion. Versace Pour Homme is a bit more floral. Again, highly complimented fragrance. I've had a lot of luck, a lot of success with it. I'm definitely going to be reaching for it a lot this summer, so it makes number 3 on my list from the house of Versace. It's called Versace Pour Homme. Number 2 on my list is easily one of the most complimented fragrances that I own. It's a fragrance that I think has this resinous sweetness in the opening. I know it's supposed to be somewhat of an incense fragrance, and whenever people think incense, myself included, I think of smoke. There's nothing like that going on in this fragrance, and I'll explain why. This is a fragrance from the house of Chanel. This one is called Bleu de Chanel. It's very hard for me to think about making a top 10 list without including this fragrance. And the reason for that whole incense thing is because when you think of incense, I think frankincense, which to me has a lemony pine smell, but it's also quite smoky. Now, another incense is myrrh, along with copal and maple, which can also be used as an incense base. But myrrh, to me, has 2 varieties. Not just to me, but generally speaking. There's the bitter myrrh, which is used in many other fragrances, like Eau Sauvage by Dior, and I think even Bois d'Argent by Christian Dior. And then there's the sweet variety, which also goes by the name of a Papanax. That's you know, a note that's used in Jubilation 25 by Amouage, and it has like this regal quality to it. It smells very rich, luxurious, expensive, and it has this resinous sweetness to it. That's what I'm getting from here. I don't know why they didn't just list a Papanax as a note and they decided to just go with the more generic incense, but that's what I get from this fragrance. But it's also very much about the grapefruit. It opens up with a little bit of grapefruit, some sweetness. It dries down to like a woody base with a little bit of vanilla, and I think amber and tonka bean. It retains that fresh sweetness through and through from the entire fragrance's longevity, from the opening to the end. I think it's a great fragrance, one of the most complimented fragrances in my collection. Number 2 on my list, Bleu de Chanel from the House of Chanel. And now we finally made it to my number 1 fragrance. I'm sorry if I talked a lot, but I love all of these fragrances, and even the newer acquisitions, which is why I'm going to be wearing them so often. But number 1 in my list is a fragrance that I have had for a very, very long time. I think this is my 3rd or 4th bottle. I've tried all of the flankers, the vetiver flanker, the iris flanker, but this is number 1 on my list for a reason. This is a very modest and humble fragrance in my opinion. It smells very soapy, clean, fresh, inviting. It's a great way for you to supplement that clean smell that you get as soon as you get out of the shower, not supplant. Supplant means to take place of. So please don't use this as a replacement for showering, even though it smells soapy. But for me, this is a great way to supplement that clean smell that you get when you exit the shower. This is a fragrance from the House of Prada. You probably already know what it is. Could be one of 2 fragrances, but it's Infusion Dome from the House of Prada. This is the very first fragrance that I've ever reviewed on my channel. I absolutely love this stuff. This fragrance opens up to me with a heavy iris note. It smells very clean, powdery, some would even say balmy, and I totally agree with that. It's very inoffensive. It's one of those fragrances that you wear when you want to smell clean without smelling like you're trying to smell clean. That's why I say it's very modest and humble in its approach. It's a great fragrance for those days when you don't really want to smell particularly like anything and you just want to smell fresh, like you just came out of the shower. So for that reason, number 1 on my list is Infusion Dome from the House of Prada. Guys, thank you all so much for watching my video. This is the first top 10 video that I've ever done on my channel. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I didn't talk for too long. I'm going to leave a thing in the description section below where you can easily manage which fragrance you want to hear me talk about. I'll leave like a little quick link thing in the description section if for some reason you want to hear me talk about another fragrance again. But thank you so much for watching. Again, please don't forget to comment, rate, and subscribe. It would be greatly appreciated. If you would like to join my Facebook group, I have one on YouTube. We would love to have you as part of the family. I've also left a link for that in the description section below. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please don't hesitate to send me a PM or leave a comment in the section below. I always reply to my comments. Again, this has been Steven with another video from Red Essence. Thanks for watching.